Joining us now, E.W. Jackson. He's got a political action committee. He's raised a ton of money for the president, independent expenditure, and that is Christians for President Trump. And he's been crisscrossing the country. He's with us now. E.W. Jackson, great to have you, sir.
Hey, great to be with you, John. And I want to say amen and amen to everything you've said about the importance of people engaging, volunteering, turning out to vote, getting others out to vote. This election really is all about turnout. And you're right. Things are moving in the right direction, but we can't take anything for granted. We've got to overwhelm the effort to cheat and steal this election. And I think we'll emerge with a victory on November 3rd if we do our part.
If you put your shoulder to the wheel in the next 6 days, you win. It's as simple as that. They're going to try to steal it. You got the big tech companies colluding with the fake news. You got all that going on. They're not going to call it. Biden's not going to concede. It doesn't matter, right? If you roll up the numbers, you have the numbers. It's as simple as that. E.W. Jackson, you've been on the road with your political action committee now for some time, campaigning for the president. Tell us what your schedule is this week, sir.
Well, I just left North Carolina. As you know, North Carolina is on the line. We've got not only the president needs to win North Carolina, but we've got a situation down there where Tom Tillis, in spite of the scandal that his opponent is immersed in, is still touch and go down there. But I think that Tom Tillis will pull it out. I'm heading to Florida in a couple of days. That's where I'll wrap things up, because you know how important Florida is. My PAC is advertising down in the Miami area to try to turn out Black and Hispanic voters. I think that the thing that people need to be aware of, President Trump is doing something I've been urging the Republican Party to do for decades and has almost never been done. You get very little response. I've said you've got to invest in reaching these Black and minority voters. They agree with us. They're ideologically in sync with us, but they are brainwashed often to believe that Republicans are racist. And by not reaching out, you only confirm that viewpoint. This president has done a magnificent job of reaching out to these communities, and I think that he's going to be rewarded for it on November 3rd. So we're advertising all over the country, or at least in the battleground states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Florida, North Carolina, here in Virginia, as you know. You got some spots running for us. And I tell you, John, I'm excited. I think we're going to see a significant shift in these minority votes. And I think we're witnessing the beginning of a movement toward the Republican Party, and it took President Trump to help make that happen.
I look at a Fox News poll, and I'm so sick of these polls. They're all fake polls. So I look at a Fox poll, right? It says African-American voters for Trump Pence 5%. I have a lot of African-American friends and associates. I mean, there is no way he's at 5%, okay? There's just no way. I mean, maybe he's not at 20, but there's no way he's at 5. It's probably like 10 or 12 or 13 or maybe 15. And it says to me that people just don't want to admit what they're doing, because there's no way that he's going to get 5% of the Black vote. No way.
No, I think it's going to be 15%, and it may well approach 20%.
Yep.
And I'll tell you something. There is a hidden Trump vote because the mainstream media, the cultural influencers, have turned anybody who votes for the president is a Nazi, is a racist, is this, is that. If you're Black, you're a traitor. And so people, I think ordinary people who aren't as crazy as you and I, John, who don't care, we just get out there and do it, who are just living their lives, trying to run a business, trying to stay employed, are saying, you know what, I'm not talking about it. I may even lie to a pollster about it, but when the time comes, I am voting for President Trump. I think you can add anywhere from 3 to 6 points. It was Trafalgar in 2016 who determined that there was a hidden vote for Trump, and they were right. They're the only pollster that got it right. And by the way, they're predicting a win for President Trump this year, too.
Tell me, when you're talking to African-American men, and I know, talk to a lot of them in your church, outside your church, what are they telling you about this election, E.W. Jackson?
Well, look, for those who are open to hearing the facts, I'm sensing two things, particularly among black men, for example. One is the facts speak more loudly than any problems people have with the president and the way he talks. Because, look, this president is not a politician. He's not a diplomat. He's not a word splitter. This guy is a straight-talking individual who cut his teeth on the construction sites of New York City. And he just tells you like it is. And frankly, I like that about him. And I think a lot of people like that about him. But it puts some people off because the mainstream media misinterprets what he says. When he calls people who won't stand up for the black SOBs, that wasn't a racist comment. He was expressing my sentiment, although I wouldn't say it that way. But he was expressing my own anger over people disrespecting our flag and our country. It wasn't racist. But men, I think, are looking through all of that and saying, no, wait a minute. This guy has funded historically black colleges and universities. This guy's created opportunity zones. This guy talked to Ice Cube about this platinum plan for $500 billion investment in the inner cities of our country. This guy signed off on criminal justice reform and is having black folks stand up and say, thank you, Mr. President, for getting me out of prison. Often imprisoned by the law that was passed by the Clintons and Biden, by the way. And I think I'm sensing, John, a surge that people are saying, forget about all the hype about the comments. I'm looking at what the man is doing, and I like what he's doing, and I'm going to vote for him.
John Fredericks Radio Network. We've worked E.W. Jackson, ran for lieutenant governor, ran for U.S. Senate in Virginia. Now he's the head of a PAC, Christians for President Trump. He's gone all over the country raising money for the president, running ads, campaigning, tireless worker. E.W. also a often guest host on the John Fredericks Show, has a huge following, has a head of the Stand organization, has a conference call, I think, noon every, Wednesday? Every week, if memory serves me.
Every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern time. And listen, please, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that while I don't compete with you, because who could, I do a little radio program myself on American Family Radio every day at 12 noon. At 1 p.m. Eastern time. It's 12 noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm talking to people all over the country, and I'm getting a lot of feedback there too, John. I'm sensing that there is an enthusiasm for this president that is absolutely off the charts. I've never seen anything like it, and I've been watching presidential elections and races for a long, long time. This is a phenomenon, and I think it's going to sweep President Trump right back into the White House.
Are you doing that show 5 days a week?
5 days a week, yes.
Why aren't we carrying it on my network?
Well, I'd have to talk to our network about that.
Have them call me because this is. I knew you were doing it, but I thought it was like sporadic, like once a week or something. Now that you're doing it every day, I don't know why our network wouldn't be carrying that either live or on tape delay, depending on what we got going on. But have your people reach out to me. You got my number, and I'll see what I can do. There's always a way to do this in radio. And but if you're live for an hour a day, 5 days a week, now you're in play. I think you'd be, I think that show would be a great addition to our station. Hey, if you want the E.W. Jackson Show on the John Fredericks Radio Network, text me 757-692-1710. If you don't, then say, nah, I don't want him. And then I'll just, hey, honesty's the best policy. But I think you're going to get overwhelming response. Hey, stay on the line, E.W. I didn't know you had your radio show. I want it.
I'd be honored to be on the John.
We got to have the John. We got to have EW on my network. We're buying another radio station in a couple months here. We're in negotiation now, but we're growing, and so we need great content like EW. So I'm gonna have your people reach out to my people. No, just have them call me. EW, what do you think of these riots in Philadelphia? So you got an African American man comes at police with a knife. I don't know what they expect the cops to do. And look, Biden said shoot him in the legs. I mean, you're there. You got somebody coming at you with a knife. What do you expect these police officers to do?
Well, first of all, I think everybody needs to understand that if you want more of this, vote Democrat. Because, look, they have stoked this stuff. They engender this stuff because they perpetuate this idea that America is inherently racist, systemically racist, and that black people are all victims. And these incidents, which, by the way, are statistically very, very isolated and very, very rare, but nevertheless, the media plays them up. And these incidents now define what America is and who Americans are and what we believe. And so Democrats tell you, yeah, you've got a right to be angry. You've got a right to get out there and tear up property. And so if you want more of that, yeah, vote for these Democrats because they'll give you plenty of it. And I'm concerned, frankly, John, that when President Trump wins, that there's going to be violence in the streets of our country because I think that this is just they're raising debt. I mean, Antifa, does everybody understand that Antifa doesn't engage in violence as a mere happenstance, that their ideology is that violence is part of what they do. It's their strategy. And these are the folks who are involved with Black Lives Matter and with this far left movement. So it's sad that our police officers have to be victimized by this nonsense. A man's running at you with a knife. You're talking about 2-3 seconds, if that much time, before he perhaps gets to you because you can't run backward as quickly as he can run forward. And what do? And yet people are talking about shoot him in the leg. I mean, that's preposterous. That's a formula for getting a cop killed. And they're rioting and looting and tearing up property and frankly being encouraged by the likes of Maxine Waters and others who keep telling them, oh, you have a right to be angry. No, you don't have a right to destroy people's property or engage in criminal behavior, and the law ought to put a stop to it. And President Trump is not going to put up with this nonsense, and he shouldn't because, by the way, all the law-abiding black citizens in those areas or citizens of whatever background in those areas are being victimized by these thugs and criminals. This is not helping any civil rights issue or helping any issue of police brutality. All this is destabilizing these communities and making the entire citizenry into victims.
E.W. Jackson with us. So you look at the looting in Philadelphia over this, and, look, I get might be outrage and maybe there'll be a march, but they are breaking in the stores. I mean, we saw pictures last night, again, second night in a row, Philadelphia on fire. And then you got people wheeling out washing machines on dollies. You got TVs getting looted. You got Walmart. They were taking out all the merchandise, clothes, sneakers, shoes. I mean, is that really what this is about? Looting and taking out a washing machine on a dolly? Is that what it's about?
Well, keep in mind, John, there's an ideology behind this. And the ideology is that private property and capitalism are inherently evil, that they're inherently racist, that they're inherently unjust. And you don't really have a right to that property. You remember people marching around in Seattle and Portland, going into suburban communities, telling people come out of their houses. You don't deserve that house. You don't have a right to that house. That house belongs to me. You stole it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is. So it's not just senseless violence. It is an attitude of disregard for private property and disregard for business and capitalism. So they're making a very loud statement about the Marxist intentions that these people have for fundamentally transforming this country.
Mm-hmm. Boy, I think you're spot on with that. And I had a couple callers on my show during the earlier riots saying that, the looters had a right to take that merchandise. They had a right to loot because it was like reparations, and it was an evening of sins past. What do you think of that?
Oh, look. Do you remember the famous comment by a former president? You didn't build that. Everything you have was stolen, in effect. Yep. I mean, either you stole it from the Native Americans or you stole it from Mexico or you stole it on the backs of slaves. And this is reparations. I mean, these are such insidious ideas. They would be laughable, John, if they weren't so dangerous.
Right.
Because they're a contradiction of everything our country stands for and believes in. Look, any black American in this country who decides to stay out of trouble, get an education, go to work, do something with your life, can become fabulously successful in this nation. Many have, I'm one included, and all people have to do is start giving that message out as opposed to this message of victimization. The police are out to get you, the world's out to get you, and all you can do is create mayhem and murder and disorder in order to express your disenchantment and disenfranchisement. It's just ridiculous. And thank God we will have a president over the next 4 years who will bring us together as opposed to what the left has done for 60 years and tearing us apart racially and with every other thing they can come up with to divide us.
E.W. Jackson's so spot on. And I remember when Obama made that statement in 2012, he said, you didn't build that. One thing he did build the cages. That we know he did build those. He did build. Obama did build the cages. So I guess that's one thing you can take credit for. John Fredericks Radio Network, E.W. Jackson. Hey, we got to get your show here on the John Fredericks Radio Network, running across Virginia. I sent you a text. You can take a look at that, and we can talk later. But thanks, E.W. Thank you for being with us.